Where's this leading? Is it leading somewhere really bad? Or are we going to be able to sort of fence this thing off?
I don't think it's leading anywhere bad at the moment. Essentially, you've got three big options. You've got isolation, which is in the diplomatic line, the economic measures. You've got potential for negotiation, not really there at the moment. Or thirdly, you've got conflict, and I don't think we're in the conflict zone at the moment.
But the first two aren't working.
They could work long term, but you'd have to give them time to see, because of the consequences of war are profound for the peninsula, and this is why South Korea are very reluctant to do so. 300,000 artillery shells would rain down across Seoul in the first 1 hour of conflict, and half the South Korean population is in range of North Korea, 10 million within the Seoul region. So there's a great reluctance to take any military action from the South Korean side.
Let's speak to Mikey Kay. We know, obviously, Theresa May has just landed in Japan. She's going to go to this Japan National Security Council meeting. What can Theresa May offer other than just words of support?
I think the first big thing that comes out of this, Ranveer, is that there is unilateral or unanimous condemnation from the Security Council. That's hugely important because that has people like China and Russia involved. So there is acquiescence across the Permanent Five that action needs to be taken. Now, Kim Jong-un has said that this latest launch is in response to the sanctions. That's all well and good. If I could just pick up on what Chip has just talked about in terms of the diplomatic line, I think there are two key areas here that aren't being spoken about too much that I think are potential courses of action prior to looking at anything more conflictory, if you like. The first one is risk is capability versus intent. It's hard to try and understand the intent of a dictator like Kim Jong-un. So let's look at the capability. What do we need, or what does he need in order to further development of his ballistic missile program? And that is engines. And there was a report that came out in the New York Times very recently about where the source of the engines was coming from. And there's a study by the Institute of Strategic Studies that indicates that they're coming from Ukraine, not necessarily backed by the Ukrainian government, but on the black market. So that would be the first place that I would be trying to target. I'd be using the CIA, I'd be using the MI6, the intelligence agencies, to try and strangle that source which develops this capability. The second one is about the terminal high altitude capability, the anti-missile capability that the US have deployed into South Korea. Now that Theresa May has gone to the United Nations Security Council, under the UN Charter, there is every reason for Japan and South Korea to be able to use military intervention in terms of intercepting a potential intermediate range ballistic missile from North Korea under the terms of self-defense. And I think that this is the next step in terms of a graduated and proportionate response. There should be unequivocal condemnation, and there should be this idea that Japan and South Korea have the right to use either the Patriot missile system or the THAAD missile system if IRBMs are lobbed towards Japan in the future. And this is the third time now, Ranveer, that North Korea have lobbed a missile over the 4 islands in Japan, the first one being in 1998.